Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I think I will start. So, first of all, good morning and welcome to the IFSF 2020 virtual conference. Many of you will have noticed that this is a very different conference for us this year. We decided to go for a virtual one in line with many other people, but hopefully it will be just as engaging and exciting as the usual one. But I am sad that we're not in Prague. Before I go any further, I should introduce myself. I'm Heather Price. I'm the chair of the International Forecourt Standards Forum. And I'd also like to introduce you to the gentleman who's also on your screen, hopefully, who is François Mezzina, and I'm trying to pronounce his name in a French way, who is the new president of IFSF. We'll probably have a prize at the end of the week for who can say IFSF correctly the most times. Right. I will be the moderator for the majority of the conference. We have a few special guest moderators sprinkled across the week, but it will generally be me. And for anyone who hasn't remembered to, I would please ask you to go to the bottom of your screen, and I'm not sure I can't see it because I'm sharing, but click on the chat button, which I think was one of the rolling slides that we had, so that you can both ask questions and chat with some of your friends and colleagues who you won't be around with, be able to talk to over the next few days as you normally would over coffee. Right, so I have to work out how to move the slides. There. So in this session, I will be primarily talking through the theme and the schedule of the conference. I'll then talk very quickly through the IFSF membership, and then I'll end with some of the work that we've done over 2020. And after that, François, who I will eventually allow to speak, will provide a president's address. Okay, so next slide. As with all IFSF meetings, before we go any further, I would ask you all to very quickly read through the IPR and competition law statement. And as it says at the bottom, if anyone does feel uncomfortable going forward, then we would invite you to leave, but hopefully that won't happen. Right, I'm not going to leave a long time here, and for anyone who doesn't get to read it all the way through, as I say, this is part of the rolling slides at the start and end of every session. So, starting with the conference, the theme of our conference this year is enhancing consumer experience and COVID-19, and the basic theme was agreed last year, actually about 2 days following the Budapest conference. The COVID-19 was obviously a slight addition, and we've also chosen to put an additional sub-theme of standard APIs driving speed to market. Hopefully you'll see as we go through the speakers that we've managed to meet both of these themes very well. So we start off at a broad level with the gentleman who is on the laptop that everyone hopefully has seen in our various communications. That's Stephen van Belleghem. Stephen is a professional keynote speaker, and he will be talking at a very broad level around enhancing consumer experience, and I'm very much looking forward to that slot. We then bring that focus in slightly when we have Mark Waltman, who's speaking on Friday. Mark is from NACS, and he'll be bringing the conversation down to a fuels retailing aspect. So just bringing it in slightly closer on convenience retail. And then we have Greg McAuliffe, who is actually from a fuel retailer. So Greg is the head of IT at Certas Europe Energy, and he will be talking on day 2, which is Thursday. We then have asked Peter Van Nou, who I know is on this morning because I've seen his name. Peter is going to give the supplier's perspective versus Greg's retailer's perspective. And then to finish our consumer experience side of things, I'm very excited that we have an innovative speaker. So that will be Mathieu Caudron, who is from a startup called BMO, and he will be talking about bringing together mobility technology with energy. The sub-theme is to allow us to talk to you all in more depth around the work that we at IFSF have done around APIs during the last 12 months. So again, we start at a broad level with Ian Brown, and I will specify that's Ian A. Brown, who's our previous president, so the predecessor of François. And Ian will be talking at a broad level around what's important around APIs and why everyone needs to understand what they can do. So I would encourage you, if you're here in a technical capacity and you have some managers, be them in sales or marketing or any commercial managers who you think need to understand enough about APIs to know that they're important to work on, please invite them to come to this afternoon's session, or maybe show them the recording that will be available on our website within the next day or so. We then have an API panel session to end our 3 days, and that was very successful last year, and we've got some great speakers there, so we'll talk about that a little more later. So I very quickly have just put the schedule for the next 3 days up, so hopefully there's nothing here that I haven't already spoken about, but I will remind people we have a full day today. Wednesday is a day off, so either to catch up on work, or if you're in France and Belgium, that's a public holiday for Armistice Day. We then move on to Thursday, so starting with Greg, following with Peter. John and David will be a very entertaining session, I'm sure, for those of you who know the two gentlemen. So John is our projects manager, David is the Connexus manager of innovation, and they will be giving a hands-on guided tour of the GitLab repository that we've just made available to people. And then also I'd like to bring everyone's attention to this session here, which doesn't exactly fit specifically within the theme, but Nick Allen and Mirko Spagnolati, so another of my best pronunciations, are new members of our executive committee, and they represent all of the technical associates. So I would again urge everyone who's available to go to that session and talk openly with Nick and Mirko about what IFSF can do for you better going forwards. And then finally on day 3, which is Friday the 13th, which hopefully will not be unlucky for us, we have Mark, the panel session, and then a very quick wash-up session, which I will be speaking again. So that's the schedule. Moving on very quickly to our membership and the people who have been very important to IFSF this year. So the red countries show our global spread with IFSF members and where they are around the world. Right now we have 151 members. The largest percentage of that by far is the technical associates, many of whom we're very pleased to welcome here today. We also have some full members and associate members. They represent fuel retailers, and we have one affiliated organisation. Once we've spoken to you over the next few days around our API work, I'm very hopeful that this number here will be even larger next year. These are the logos of just a few of our new members, and I know that a number of them have registered for the next few days, so hopefully we can welcome some of these, and maybe next year we can even speak to them face to face and perhaps welcome them in Prague. Oops. Couldn't move forwards without talking about our partners in crime. So we work with a number of other standards agencies. You'll hear us talking a lot over the next few days about Connexus, who we're doing a lot of work on APIs to give ourselves a global spread. Connexus are a standards agency for convenience retail, fuel convenience retail based in the US. We've been working on, again, with Nexo in the payment area, Open Charge Alliance in the EV area, and I'm pleased to say that Lonica Dreesen, who is the Director of Standardization at OCA, is part of our API panel. We've been talking to the APDS, the Parking Data Standards people, again this year. I know that a number of our members keep up with W3C, and we're a member of the W3C community. NACS is obviously represented by Mark at our with a presentation at the end, and I believe a number of you will have come across Forecourt Tech and probably heard John and Ian speaking at the Forecourt Tech conference just about a month ago, I think. And then SPA, finally, another of the organisations that we work with, and this is to make sure that our standards are not only good within our very specific part of the industry, but that we spread the word of standards and that our standards fit nicely together with standards in other areas that are not specifically our industry, but like payment impact many others, so that we don't have sharp edges around what we do. So I'd like to thank our sponsors for the conference. Gezi Tech and Mathieu have, I don't think I've said that, no, sorry, Matthias. I get my Matthews, my Matthias and my Matthias is confused. So Matthias and Gezi Tech have been loyal sponsors of us for a number of years. Thank you very much. And also REPL and Orion Tech. REPL and Orion Tech both have done a lot of work with us this year. They're consultants and they've been providing us support in the area of the technical work with APIs and also with the strategy. And again, I'm pleased to say that Michael de Selincourt from REPL and Gonzalo Gomez from Orion Tech will be sitting on the API panel on Friday. So 2020, what will we remember 2024? I originally didn't have this slide, and then I thought you can't possibly talk about 2020 without the impact of coronavirus. Obviously, there have been many people around the world who've been very badly affected, and there's been a huge human toll from coronavirus, but it's also affected the way in which all of us carry on our lives, probably to an extent that most of us wouldn't have believed or couldn't have believed a year ago could actually happen. I think if someone had said to me a year ago that I'd be confined to my house, so I'm currently in quarantine because my son tested positive, I'm not allowed out to walk the dog, I can't see anyone, I've not really been allowed to see any of my family all year, I think most of us would have not really believed that. Coronavirus came and it's still with us. I think after the news yesterday, all of us have a little more hope that maybe by this time next year we can meet up in Prague. But what about 2020 and IFSF? The one big impact we've actually felt, because a number of us work from home anyway, is that actually the amount of foreign travel that people have been doing is much, much less. And we had a positive impact of that, which is that we have more resources available and people are much easier to get hold of. And actually for the conference, when you don't ask people to give up 2 days to travel somewhere and then come back, we've been able to get more speakers who are different speakers from different places. In terms of our progress, it's allowed us to move forwards with our API work, I believe, more than we would have expected a year ago. So since November 2019, and I start with November because that's the last time we spoke with you, we've been working very hard with Connexus to progress some of the things we talked about a year ago. So we now have a published GitLab repository, and that's called openretailing.org and can be found by anyone, member or not member. Within that repository, we have a published data dictionary. I believe there are about 460 terms at the moment in the data dictionary, and that's growing. So the terms for the areas that we've got APIs for now are fixed, but obviously as new areas are entered into, the terms for those areas will be entered into the data dictionary. We've published API design guidelines, or as I prefer to call it, our API Bible. We also have 11 API collections published, and within those 11 collections, there are around 150 unique endpoints. So, you know, a lot of progress there. Plus we're working on tools for members, which include simulators and an API spec validator. So that's what we've actually produced. I think when I asked John what we'd done in the year, he was surprised when he read through it, how much we've actually achieved. And I think most of you will agree with that. The key piece of work we've done, though, is we've continued to work with Connexus, which means that this is a single set of global standard APIs, so that if you're in the US, or if you're in Europe, if you're in Asia, those are the same standard APIs wherever you are. To do this, we've met with our partners at Connexus on a weekly basis, probably starting in January, and that started with actually a face-to-face meeting in London. Originally, we planned to have many more face-to-face meetings, but I don't need to explain why that didn't happen. We continue to have a joint API strategy work group, but also we have a growing number of joint API work groups which are in specific areas of standardization. So for example, in loyalty. In addition to the work we've done, there have been some changes to the IFSF leadership team. Now, this is when my pronunciation of names becomes fairly entertaining, and I do apologise in advance to people whose names I do not pronounce correctly. But let me start with the easiest one. So Nick Allen and Mirko Spagnolati are new representatives on the IFSF Executive Committee, and the Executive Committee meets on a monthly basis, and Nick and Mirko represent the technical associates on that committee and have been hugely helpful, bring huge amounts of energy and of course lots of experience and knowledge from the other side of the table. So welcome to Nick and Mirko. Sticking with the Executive Committee, we also thought, just for an entertainment element, we bring in two people with the same name. Many of you will have come across the fact before that within IFSF we have two Ian Browns. So Ian S. Brown, the EFT work group lead, was invited to join the Executive Committee to bring his input because he hadn't been on it before. And then when Ian A. Brown retired as president, I persuaded him to come back in the role of API strategy manager, and Ian is also part of that Executive Committee. And then finally, we have two new members of the board and the Executive Committee. And this is where the names get more interesting. So I'd like to welcome Dariusz Śleziak. Dariusz, I really apologise if I got that wrong. Dariusz, by the way, he allows us to call him Darek, which is much easier. Darek is the BP representative, and Nils Gillia, I'll get that wrong, and then Nils sent me a voice recording of his name, Nils Gillia, and he is the Circle K representative, and he replaced Piotr Paklepa in the middle of the year. But I can't finish without talking about the biggest change we had to our leadership team, which is, of course, that we have a new president. But because we have a new president, we also therefore have said goodbye to a president. On the 1st of June, we had the results of our election had come through, and François Mezzina became the new president of IFSF. I'm very pleased to announce that it was a very peaceful and amicable transition. We had no discussion or arguments about who really should be president. Ian, of course, had been with IFSF for many, many years. He joined the board, we think, in 2001, but we're not absolutely clear if that was the right year, but it was around 2001. So he was on the board for almost 20 years. And of those years, he was the president for 13 years. I don't need to say to all of you, I'm sure, what level of commitment that has taken to do, and the amount of work that Ian has put in, and just the huge amount of knowledge that he brings. And we were very pleased, therefore, when we were able to persuade Ian to remain with IFSF in a different role when he agreed to be the API strategy manager. So welcome to your new role, but also personally from me and also from IFSF, Ian, thank you very, very much for just the huge effort over all those years of doing a second job when you already have a very busy day job. And then finally, I'd like to introduce and wish very good luck to our new president, François Mezzina. Now, do I get your next slide, François? There you are. And please go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Heather. Thank you very much for your brilliant introduction. Dear board colleagues, dear members, dear partners, dear participants, it is with a certain emotion that I'm talking to you today. First, because last spring, I've been designated by my board colleagues to be the new president of IFSF, replacing Ian Brown, who deserved to be retired since July this year. As such, and on behalf of the board, I would like to thank Ian publicly for his extreme valuable contribution to the association over 19 years within IFSF, including the 13 last years as president. As Heather just explained earlier, Ian has accepted to continue working as a consultant for the benefit of IFSF. Thank you again, Ian, bringing still your long and rich experience in our industry for our association. Your presentation later during the day would certainly make us understand much better why APIs are so beneficial for our industry. It is also emotional talking to you today because it is only through a web link. As it has been explained by our chair, Heather, despite the strong will of the IFSF board to maintain its annual conference in a physical location, it came to us inevitable to forget the idea like many other forums. Thanks to the digital technologies, now easily accessible, we can meet virtually all at once and somehow make our annual conference happen. For sure, we will miss the small talks during the breaks, always a good opportunity to make the association improving still. But I'm certain that the chat organized during our different sessions will give you a good way to promote your ideas and suggestions as such. I just mentioned the association improving still. It is clearly an IFSF board permanent objective. As a matter of fact, for the last couple of years, it approved important investments in the development of new APIs. IFSF is one among others to contribute to that inevitable API trend taken by many industries. But to be certain to provide best-in-class standards, we will certainly need to partner closer with some other companies. It is already the case with our historical partner, Connexus. I would like to thank Gray Taylor and Linda Toff for making this relationship always constructive and fruitful for both companies. But the retail and energy business or businesses are in a transition phase where new mobility drivers increase standard requirements. In this matter, IFSF is working, for instance, with Lonneke Drissen from Open Charge Alliance or Claude Brun with Jacques Soussana from Nexo to combine our respective efforts to make our standards more and more interoperable. Thank you, Lonneke, Claude, and Jacques. As you may understand, we're experiencing a fascinating transition phase, a new paradigm where our industry needs to adapt rapidly with efficiency. And to make it happen, strong partnerships need to take place. IFSF, with its board representatives, is aware of such necessity. It will focus all its efforts, as always, to provide its members the best standards as such. Please enjoy our exciting sessions to come for such a special IFSF annual conference. And above all, please take care of you and your relatives.
Thank you, François.